When we're first starting out with magic, I think our mindset and the way we approach it is really important. That's why I've picked the Page of Swords here, the student of the mind, the student of the intellect. And if you have any tips on helpful magical mindsets that have served you well on your magical journey so far, then please let me know down in the comments. It will be lovely to hear from you. The first tip that I have is don't label yourself or your magical practice right away. I still haven't labelled myself. I just do the things that I'm drawn to. But I think it can be tempting to do that because I think ultimately we're humans and we like to belong. We like to belong to a group, so we have other people to relate to. But I would recommend giving yourself time to figure it out. And also that you don't have to label yourself ever if you don't want to. You could just choose to remain flexible and not put yourself in any particular box. The problem is if you label yourself too early on, you might feel the need to stick with that. And if you change your mind, maybe you think you can't. You need to kind of just keep going along the path that you're on. This is supposed to be a fun journey. I know magic can be serious, of course, and we should take our magic seriously, but I think we should also have fun with it. Tip number 2 is to read and research, but not too much. And I say this as somebody who does a lot of reading. I love reading my occult books and my magical practice books and also my spirituality books, but there comes a point where you need to stop reading and start practicing. Unless of course you don't want to. If you just want to be somebody who reads about these things, then fair enough. But if you actually want to be a magical practitioner, you need to do the practice. And I think that's maybe where people get stuck. I know for me that I was worried about starting magic. I didn't know whether I was capable of doing it. I felt that it was more for other people and that I was just not somebody who would ever be able to do magic. But once I started it, once I took those initial few steps, it felt a lot better and it just flowed from there really. The next tip is don't get seduced by the aesthetic. I love the aesthetics of magic. I deliberately bought this box of matches because I loved the box so much. There are certain things that just look nice, aren't they? And I do think we can buy things because aesthetically they help us on a psychological level when we're forming our magic. Certainly I've bought items for specific magical rituals because I feel that the look of them and the presence of them will enhance my magic. Whether or not that's true or not, that's my belief, and I feel that my belief helps to enhance the power of my magic. So I'm not saying that buying things purely for the aesthetic is wrong. I think it's just if we get into a position where we're buying things for that reason alone, magic doesn't have to be pretty. Magic can be very simple, very basic. It doesn't need all the bells and whistles and all the twinkly, sparkly, pretty things on it. Those things are not necessarily going to help the magic. And social media certainly is a breeding ground for us to buy all sorts of magical items, but just don't get too hung up on it. Don't feel that the aesthetic is the magic. It's a look, but it's not the actual thing. The next tip is to beware of the people who gatekeep and impose shoulds and musts on magical practices. This isn't just in the magical arena, is it? There are people in all arenas of life who gatekeep. They tell us what we should and shouldn't do. I tend to avoid people who talk in extremes or absolutes. If I'm watching someone online and they're saying, well, it can't be like this, and they don't look at any grey areas at all, that puts me off, because for me, working from extremes isn't helpful, whether that is in magic or any area of your life. If you go from one extreme opinion to another and you don't look at the nuance of it all, you're missing out on a lot. I much prefer people who are able to sit within that grey area and talk about the nuances, which I know can be difficult on social media, maybe other apps that they're not so geared towards long form content like YouTube is. But if they're not talking about the nuance, then I'm very wary of those people. Get experience of watching lots of different people and you'll probably see a lot of divergent opinions and approaches, and I would see which people feel right to you, see which ones are more open and welcoming to people from all walks of life, rather than those who seem to kind of hold very tightly that there are only certain people who should practice magic or be involved in the occult. The next mindset is that you will never know everything, and that's okay. Certainly I have read quite a lot of books. I really devour books. I normally have 3 or 4 books on the go at any one time. I love reading. But I find that the more I read, the less I know. And I need to read more. A bit like we've got the Page of Swords here. We're always going to be a student in life. I think if you ever get to a point where you think you know everything and you don't need to learn anymore, you're closing yourself off to learning about new experiences and learning new knowledge. Always be a student. Be happy to be a student. It should be a fun place to be. It's a place of learning, unfolding knowledge, maybe surprise surprises, being able to be in awe of things that you didn't know before. And I think, is it in Buddhism, they talk about beginner's mindset or beginner's mind, come at things from a place of not knowing. And I think we open ourselves up to learning far more than if we close ourselves off and think we know everything. The next tip is to avoid the temptation to do everything. I've been in this position before where I take on too much, do too many things, and then I get mentally exhausted and have to strip things back. Pick one or two things that you want to learn more about, want to experiment with, and stick at those for a bit and see how you get on. As you learn more, the temptation will be to probably add more and more things to your practice, and I've done this. There are quite a few devotional things that I do at the moment, and it's just about enough. I think if I added more, I would be burning myself out. But I always keep an eye on it because life circumstances change. We may need to adjust our magical and devotional practices according to what's going on in our lives. But I think it's far better to start off conservatively, don't do too much at once, and then you can build up over time if you want to add more aspects to your magical practice or your devotional practices. The next tip is don't forget the mundane. Magic increases the chances of things happening in the mundane world, but we also have to do things in the mundane to assist the magic. Magic isn't an excuse to negate our responsibility of how we live life and what we do in this life. It's a tool. It's an ally, I guess, but we shouldn't forget that we still need to take action in the mundane world. The next tip I have is to prioritise consistency. It's like anything, I guess, isn't it? If we do something once or twice and then we forget it, we're not likely to see any results. But practicing magic consistently, and also I would say if you have devotional practices, being consistent with those, you're more likely to improve as a magical practitioner. I do prioritise my reading as well. I find it's a balance between reading and learning knowledge and putting that knowledge into practice. So whatever it is, whether it's magical practice or studying, consistency is going to help you build your magical skills, and you're more likely to see changes happening in your material life. This next tip is more of a practical tip, I guess, although it does involve the mind. And for me, this is one of the most important things to do when you're starting out practicing magic. And if you want to find out what this tip is, the video is up on the screen now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.